I stopped following YouTube tips and I made more money. And this is how. Recently, for years, really, I was struggling to try to figure out how to make more money. And before you click off, no, this is not a get rich quick scheme. I'm not no guru. I'm just a regular person like you and me. But I know right now that it's been hard for a lot of people, and I want to tell you the truth about my reality. I made a video maybe a few weeks ago, even about talking about finances and how it's hard for a lot of people out here to make finances. But in that video, I talked about some tips that I had that is helping me to, do better in this life right now. And it's going to help you too. Recently, I am pretty much the sole provider for my family right now. My girl's not, working and things aren't going the way we usually wanted to do. But this is how I keep us afloat, and this is how I make more money without content creation, aside from YouTube and YouTube tips and gurus, etc. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the first thing you have to do, and I know a lot of people don't like this, is you have to max out whatever your hours is at work. So this is solely dependent on how much money you want to make versus how much money you already make. And what I mean by this is simple. So if you have a goal, say, hey, I want to get to 100,000 in X amount of years, or I want to say 50,000, 20,000, 10,000. That depends on how much money you bring in. So the first thing is, how much money are you going to bring in order for you to reach that goal? And when you're talking about bringing in money, it's not just about how much money you're bringing in, it's you breaking them up, your finances. I'm not going to tell you to have a budget. That's on you, but you do need to have money that you can pay your bills, you can save, and you can invest, which I'm going to talk about more in a second. So the first thing is to max out whatever your hours is. So right now, it's sometimes where I do 50 hours a week. I think the most I've done is maybe 60 hours in a week. At my job, I work at Amazon, nothing spectacular. And that allows me to bring home maybe an extra $500, $700. You know what I mean? Just because I won't say that. I say maybe like 300 to like 300 to, yeah, maybe three to like $600 every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Which may not be a lot for some people, but this is just part of what I do. So the first thing you do is you work more. You max out whatever your hours is at whatever your job is. If 40 hours is all you can do, then the next thing you need to do is you either do part-time or you need to have a side hustle. Here's why I say max out what you do first. Because of the fact that if I max what I do, that means I get overtime. So for example, if I'm getting $20 an hour, overtime is time and a half. That means my time and a half is $30 an hour. As opposed to if I get part-time job, then technically I have to do more work for less money, right? And it's not a lot of part-time jobs now, if we're being honest, that pays a lot of money. You might get anywhere between like 15, 17, 18 bucks. And if that's something you want to do, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not income shaming. I'm not the richest person in the world yet, but I am doing things that will allow me to get there. So once you do that, max out your work hours. Because like I said, you can get overtime and you get time and a half. Now, once you've done that, you can do two things with your income, right? So you can work a part-time job, you can get a side hustle. The reason why I go back to the working maxing out, because if your job is still not paying you enough after max out, then you might have to start looking at other jobs. So one thing that I used to do before is teaching. Another thing that I did before is I ran a club for 2 years. I just stopped doing that because it just was too much. Working in nightlife was just too much for me. I have a family and all that. I couldn't sustain both at the same time. And then having, like a family and, having a balance and healthy relationships without my girl trying to chop my head off. Like, I just couldn't do all that. I'm just going to be real. So I had to scratch that. So I had to go back to the basics of what I knew. So like I said, now I get to the part-time and side hustle. So like I said, once you max out your hours, whatever hours that is, if you could do overtime. If not, you get a part-time and a side hustle, right? Part-time, that'll give you something that you know every week, I can make this amount of money. If that's okay, then you don't need to do the side hustle, right? If that's not okay, then you can look into doing a side hustle. So for me, I'm in a point now where I max out my OT. I work full-time, and I'm thinking about doing something part-time as well. But the thing about part-time is, based on the hours you have left after you max out, you got to make sure that you're getting a good, let's say, a good return on your whatever your investment is, right? Your time investment. So I always say max out first, because then if you max out your OT, then one, you don't have to get the habit of, not the habit, you don't have to sacrifice time by trying to go to a new job. You got to drive there. You got to have energy to get to know people and spend time there and this, that, and the third. As opposed to if you max out whatever your OT is, you could potentially make more money because you get time and a half. I know taxes, right? You get time and a half. And then even if you get time and a half, I don't got to get to know nobody else. I know the people that I'm around. I know what I need to do. I don't have to learn a new job, right? So that's one thing. A side hustle is another thing. So that could be a skill, whatever skill you want to do. I am a candle maker. I've been making candles now for 5 years, 5, 6 years, right? And the reason why a side hustle is important because right now in this economy, just one job for a lot of people is not enough. Unless you have a 2 income household or unless your cost of living is, is not high, right? So with a side hustle like candles, I can make $300 a day, or probably on the low end. You know what I'm saying? I say $200 a day on the low end. I can make 3, 4, 500 on a medium end, and I can make like $1,000 on the high end. But the reason why I say a side hustle is because even though I can make that, that is not a always everyday thing, right? Because of the fact that it depends on what kind of events I'm doing. It depends on what kind of sales I'm running. It depends on how many people actually want candles. It depends on the season right now. It's a lot of things. My candle, business hobby, it's not flowing enough consistently where I can do just that. But in spurts, it can help add 500 here, 300 there, 200 there, 700 there, 1,000. You know what I'm saying? It can help add. So this is why you kind of do a combination of things, right? So you work first, you add a side hustle. The next thing you do is you save and invest, right? So right now I do like maybe like I say 10 to 20% of your income. Whatever you can start, it's really about building the habit. And then kind of once you build that habit, this is money that you don't touch at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I have seen other YouTubers talk about this. I've seen the guy, I don't know his name, he talked about working 80 hours a week. I have seen the guy talk about his experience at Amazon. And I got another guy that I like to watch, recently cut. He's talked about his warehouse experiences and stuff like that. So with these things, you kind of add them all together, save and invest. So you save whatever you can, 10 to 20%. You can invest. So the basic ways to invest and start is with ETFs index. There are people that I do like on YouTube. Earn Your Leisure is one of them. Chris Sane is another one for people who look like me. These are people I've been watching for years. The first thing you want to do is start with index funds or whatever the safest bet is. So it could be the SPY, it could be VOO, it could be VTI. I have VOO and VTI, and I have SPY for my son. So these are ways that you can start to bring in more money and income, right? Another thing you could do, I would say, is you start to build a community around whatever you're trying to do. So for me, it's content. I make a video a day, take 20, 30 minutes to make me a video a day. I post it. If I chop it up, I chop it up and I post it. If I don't chop it up, I just post it as it is. And you start to build a community around what you do. The fact that I've been doing candles now for 5 years, even if my community isn't large because I moved around from place to place, there are people that live in the same city I have that hit me up for candles. There are people who don't live here anymore that hit me up for candles. So I can mail them candles. I can drop candles off to people in the city. And so even if right now it's not like I make $1,000 a week from candles, I can make $100, $200 a week, or $300 here, $400 here, whatever. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times on YouTube with the gurus and stuff, they tell you, hey man, get my course, read my book, this, that, and the third. And when you buy the course, you're kind of getting bits and pieces of information, right? This is something that I've learned. And I don't want to say it's a scam, but it's a scam. A lot of times it's a scam because they want you to come back and buy more. Now, I'm not saying don't buy nobody's courses there, because there are certain people who I like their stuff and I will invest in a course or a book or whatever, but it's got to be somebody you trust, right? One thing I would say when it comes to that is if it's somebody who is kind of proven what they've done, then you can go. And I'm not saying like, hey, I got testimonies from this guy, but if they can kind of, okay, this is what I do on my YouTube channel. I show people how to build 6 figures from here to here, and they're giving you actionable steps that work. And then they say, okay, if you want to learn more from me or you want to get one-on-one, then you can buy this. Or if you want to get more in-depth details, then you can buy this. But they already showing you stuff that actually works and not just telling you about it, then that might be a course you want to invest in. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So this is how I make money, without YouTube tips. This is how I make money without following the tips on YouTube, and this is how I make it work for my life. So now I'm bringing in more money than I was before. Now, am I just financially stable? No, not yet. But this has allowed me to invest more. This has allowed me to save more. And this will allow me to get to my goal a lot quicker. So sometimes we try to, and I tell family and friends this all the time, sometimes we try to, and I learned this the hard way. Sometimes we try to circumvent certain stuff in lives by going, let me go get this course, or let me go do this, let me go do that, instead of just doing the work, right? And the work could just be working your job, maxing out OT, you know what I'm saying, picking up a part-time job and just using that money to save and invest or pay down debt or whatever it is. Instead of saying, okay, well, if I do this and I take this $5, then I put on this parlay, I can hit that parlay to 250, then I can wrap that back around, take a piece. That's too much. Because by the time you would have worked and you just would have saved and you would have invested, you would have been further along than trying to find these get rich quick schemes that ultimately you might make a little money, but you're not making a large enough quantity. And sometimes it's taking a risk, but taking a risk on a safe bet. So for me, for example, I could quit my job and be like, yeah, I want to go full time to entrepreneurship. And I've done that before, but that doesn't make sense, because why do that when I can make all the money that I need, build my base for what I'm trying to do, and then use that as a stepping stone for me to go into entrepreneurship? Instead of saying, well, now I want to quit my job, and I quit my job, and then for the next 6 months, I'm trying to figure out how do I pay my bills. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of saying, okay, well, let me stack up 6 months, then I can quit my job. So at least I give myself 6 months cushion to figure out something. And then in the meantime, while you're still working, you can still test whatever that idea is that you want to do. And you can see if it's lucrative, see if it's going to make money, right? And this is how I found out that candles aren't really, they're sustainable. They can be sustainable. But this is how I figured out that right now my candles might be more of a luxury item or a seasonal item, or, you know what I'm saying? That might not be something I can depend on. I could do more pop-ups and things like that. But unless I'm getting into a pop-up that I can do every week and I can keep up with that volume every week, it's not really going to make sense for me to do that right now. But if I had a base of like 3 months, 6 months income, and then I say, hey, I want to take 6 months off and I'm not doing nothing but making candles and doing pop-ups, then now I got the money that I had and the money that I'm making, as opposed to just not having anything and then trying to figure it out. So this is, like I said, this is how I make money without YouTube tips, not listening to so much the gurus. There are people you can listen to, but you gotta listen to people who know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that I know what I'm doing. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just telling you what I did or what I do to bring in extra money for myself and my family. What I do to invest in my future. What I do to take care of my son. What I do. Not telling you what you do. And this is me. I had to learn this on the pivot. I had to learn this on the fly. It was a lot of changes that was happening in my life simultaneously, and I didn't know how to do it. I really didn't know. So I hope that this helps. Um, yeah, I hope that this helps. If it does, like, comment, subscribe. If you got your own way or you think you know something better, drop it in the comments, because that's how we learn. And you just go through these steps, man. Save, max out, invest, build a community for the future, repeat. And you just go through that. It's the simple stuff. It's not always easy because you got to do it every day, but you already get up and go to work every day anyway. So you might as well kind of, I would say, think long term at least for the next 6 months, and try to build your base from there. Any questions or comments, drop it in the comment box. Till next time. Peace.